Critical Focus channel.
Time to rate the warbands within the Death faction in a similar fashion to what I did with the Chaos faction. So if you haven't watched that one, go back and watch that one first. But shortly, I'm not simply rating how good warbands are here. I am not terribly entrenched in the super competitive side of this hobby, but rather how much I enjoy warbands based on fun mechanics, looks, themes, etc. Here I will rate the in-rotation warbands within the Death faction, starting from the bottom. First up, I will say that I, even more so here than with the Chaos faction, I lack enough playing time with a few of these warbands to give a totally balanced view here, but it won't stop me from trying anyway. At the bottom here I'm gonna put the Sepulchral Guard, a lot of people's favorites in previous seasons, but they feel rather sad nowadays, and a big issue with the recursion warbands in general is the fact that raised fighters lose their upgrades, a fact that hits them rather hard when previously a geared up champion did a lot of heavy lifting. The abilities on the War Scroll weren't the most interesting picks from a plethora of really good ploys to transfer either, and I'm just not generally a big fan of the really slow horde warbands. Speed equals fun in my book. Kainan's Reapers suffers from a lot of the same things. They were an excellent warband way back and had some of the strongest power cards around, and that simply hasn't been kept at all in this version. Add to that the health reduction on Kenta and the big nerf to how Mortec Advance works and the ditching of the Netherite weapon buff, and they simply feel rather dull now. Their only saving grace, and the same goes for the Sepulchral God I guess, is that they are now a good candidate for the edge of the knife. And as a last stab at them, I really dislike the Osiriarch aesthetic overall. It looks way too futuristic in my opinion. It's pretty much Necrons and I'm not a fan. Next up I am putting the Skinnerkin, a very fun warband deck. We're done dirty in the transition. The fact that weapon effects can't be stacked is a particularly big drawback to this warband, as they really lack damage output, and Grievous and Fillet can't be combined, which makes them rather weak. Still, they have decent enough mobility, which is always a big boon. Next in line I'm gonna chuck in the Thorns of the Briarqueen. I always found it a bit baffling that both the Queen and Varklav were sitting on 4 health each, and I'm happy to see that done away with now, as it didn't really make much sense in such a big warband. I think this transition to 2nd edition has been done with some more finesse than the previously mentioned warbands. The Wave of Terror ability is a nice little buff. However, both Throttle and Spectral Touch is rather meh, and I would have preferred something more fun and impactful instead of those. Still, it's a slightly more mobile warband than the Skellies, and all these things combined will have them sitting slightly higher up in the rankings. Zondara's Gravebreakers next. Really liked this warband previously, and they are still reasonably fun to play, with excellent models with some good variety in attack profiles, etc. But such a thematic design and warband deck, we're just never gonna fully transition well into the slimmed concept of 2.0. The cookie cutter playstyle is pretty much sacrifice Zondara to make Furline into a killbot, which is slightly uninspiring to me, I guess. Crimson Court has taken a huge leap in this list after the complete revamp, which saw changes to a lot of stuff I suggested in my Fixing Bad War Scrolls video, funnily enough. They are still nowhere near their heydays in terms of enjoyment though, not least because of the doing away with magic. I still need to see more changes to their abilities and a buff to the bloodthirsted condition in general for them to rise to the top here, and the fact a couple of their abilities don't have hybrid effects depending on if you are bloodthirsted or inspired makes me very unsatisfied. Still good stats and excellent models and decent enough mobility and damage output. All good things. The second position will be held, or wielded I should say, by the Headsman's Curse. This is an excellent mid-sized warband with good DPS output, decent enough mobility and defense, and a decent enough transition to 2nd edition as well. Am I crazy about all of their abilities? No, but I think it's good enough for what's possible within the confines of the design space of 2.0. It's a great thematic warband, with these tormented souls being bound to the cursed blade terminus as well, which will grant them this 2nd spot in my list. At the top, however, right now, there is a fair few death warbands returning, soon, sits the Grymwatch, an excellent, strong and useful war scroll paired with good mobility and decent enough damage output, as well as the fact that their recursion can happen from any edge checks makes them very hard to sort of pin down and a lot of fun to play. Looking back at the faction as a whole, I think this is probably a Grand Alliance which has the biggest number of disappointing transitions to 2.0. The fact that a rather disappointing warband in the Crimson Court, even after the revamp, sits that high up says a lot of the Grand Alliance sort of overall treatment in Embergard. I really hope that the Sons of Velmorn and that the Exiled Dead as well can alleviate some of that disappointment in coming months. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all again very soon. Take care. Bye. Lastly, a big shout out to all my members that help support my content and makes it so much easier for me to produce multiple videos on a weekly basis. Members do get access to the member Discord, get to influence the content, get early access to a ton of videos, as well as get featured in the monthly painting showcase if they want. Member or not, I dearly appreciate the like, the comment and the subscription.